You were taught that strength means endurance, that if you just hold on long enough, push hard enough, survive long enough, you will eventually win. That is the lie they fed you. That is the exact belief that has kept you exhausted, exploited, and quietly breaking apart while smiling at people who do not deserve your loyalty. Endurance without philosophy is just slow destruction. And the philosophers who could have saved you, the ones who understood power as a science, not a sermon, were systematically removed from your education, replaced with comfort, with participation trophies, with the idea that vulnerability is strength and that opening yourself to the world is courage. You were not taught Stoicism. You were taught its corpse, a sanitized, Instagram-friendly version designed to make you calm enough to be managed, calm enough to comply, calm enough to never become dangerous. The real Stoics were not peaceful men. They were unbreakable ones. And there is a difference so vast between those two things that most people will live and die without ever understanding it. There are 4 specific laws that the original Stoics practiced, not preached, practiced, that made them immune to manipulation, immune to collapse, and immune to the psychological warfare that most people do not even realize is being waged against them daily. The 4th one will explain every relationship in your life that has ever destroyed you. If you are not ready for this, close the video. Go back to the crowd. But if you want to know the truth about why you keep breaking, stay. The average man does not know he is enslaved because his chains are made of other people's opinions. He wakes up performing. He speaks to be liked. He softens his convictions, rounds his edges, dims his light, not because he is weak, but because he was trained from childhood to treat approval as oxygen. This is not a character flaw. It is a psychological trap with a name. Psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan identified it in their self-determination theory, the distinction between intrinsic motivation and external validation as a regulatory system. When your behavior is governed by what others think of you, you are not free. You are a marionette with invisible strings, and every person around you holds a piece of the control. Marcus Aurelius understood this. Emperor of Rome, commander of legions, architect of an empire, and he wrote in his private journal words that were never meant to be read by anyone but himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He was not writing for applause. He was writing as surgery, cutting away everything in himself that still bled when others did not clap. The Stoic law here is absolute. Your internal state must be governed by your values, not their reactions. Not silence, not aggression, disconnection. The practical application is this. The next time someone criticizes you to destabilize you, do not defend yourself. Do not explain. Hold eye contact for 4 seconds. Say nothing. Let the silence sit between you like a blade. Then change the subject as if they said nothing of significance, because to you, a man governed by internal law, they did not. Robert Greene in The 48 Laws of Power codifies this as Law 4. Always say less than necessary. But the deeper principle beneath the law is this. The man who controls his reaction controls the room. You surrender your throne the moment you open your mouth to justify yourself to someone who has already decided not to understand you. What happens when you stop performing? When approval becomes irrelevant? The second law answers that, and it is more unsettling than the first. Want is the greatest weapon your enemies will ever use against you. They do not need to attack you directly. They only need to know what you want badly enough, and then they own you.
They can offer it, withhold it, dangle it, and you will follow like a dog behind a scent. 99% of people spend their entire lives in this condition, wanting validation, wanting security, wanting love from specific people, wanting a specific outcome from a specific situation. And the wanting itself becomes the mechanism of their destruction. The Stoics called this attachment to preferred indifference, externals that feel necessary but are, in truth, beyond your control. Epictetus, who was a literal slave, understood this at a level that would humiliate most free men. He wrote, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." This is not resignation. This is the coldest, most deliberate form of power. Because the man who can walk away from anything, money, relationships, status, comfort, is the man no one can threaten. He has no pressure points. He is not a fortress. He is a glacier, slow, silent, and capable of reshaping the landscape without making a sound. Napoleon understood the opposite of this law by violating it. His need, his consuming, desperate need to hold on to power is what destroyed him. After Waterloo, he hesitated. He bargained. He could not let go. And that inability to release what was already lost cost him the very dignity that surrender might have preserved. The man who cannot lose without collapsing was never truly powerful to begin with. The practical instruction is this: make a list of the 3 things you are most afraid to lose right now. Not hypothetically. Actually write them down. Then sit with the question, what would you do if tomorrow each one was gone? If you cannot answer that question with cold clarity, then those things are not possessions. They are leashes. Detachment is not indifference. It is the decision to love without needing, to participate without becoming dependent, to play the game without letting the game own you. And if that principle sounds cold, wait, because the 3rd law is colder still. The average man believes that controlling your emotions means suppressing them. He buries the anger. He performs calm. He smiles when he wants to scream and calls this discipline. It is not. It is a mask on a wound, and masks rot over time. Real emotional mastery is something different and something far more precise. It is the ability to feel fully, to let the rage, the grief, the desire move through you, and then to choose deliberately what you allow to surface, when, and in what form. This is not suppression. This is the strategic deployment of affect. Joe Navarro, former FBI behavioral analyst and author of What Everybody is Saying, spent decades studying how the body betrays the mind. His core finding? The limbic system reacts before the conscious mind can intervene. Most people are readable because their body speaks what their face is trying to hide. Microexpressions, pupil dilation, the angle of the feet. You are being read in every interaction by people who have never read a single word of his research. Because humans evolved to detect fear and weakness at an instinctive level. The sovereign man does not try to suppress the signal. He eliminates the need to suppress by processing emotion before he enters the room. He is already cold by the time he arrives. Cosimo de' Medici, the architect of the Florentine banking empire,
was known for something terrifying in his era. No one ever knew what he was thinking. He was warm in social settings, generous even. But the calculations running beneath that warmth were glacial. He did not react to threats. He absorbed them, processed them in silence, and responded months later in ways his opponents never traced back to the original provocation. He did not play chess in the moment.
He played chess 3 seasons in advance. The practical application is this. Before any conversation that matters, negotiation, confrontation, difficult truth, spend 5 minutes alone in silence, not reviewing your arguments, not rehearsing your lines, simply sitting with whatever emotion the situation is generating in you and breathing through it until you can observe it without becoming it. Then enter the room. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But what he did not say, what he assumed was understood, is that fear is not generated by aggression. It is generated by unpredictability, by the man who never shows you the bottom of his calculation, by stillness that feels like it contains a storm. You are still here. Good. The fragile ones already left. Comment below. I choose the cold path. This is the one. This is the law that explains every relationship that has ever broken you. You built your identity on something external, your role, your achievements, your status in someone else's eyes, your relationship, your job title, your physique, your reputation. And when any of those things were threatened or taken, you did not lose a possession. You lost yourself, because you had placed yourself inside the possession. This is the deepest form of psychological vulnerability a human being can carry. Psychologists call it contingent self-worth, a term studied extensively by Jennifer Crocker at Ohio State University. Her research demonstrated that individuals who base their self-esteem on external outcomes experience higher rates of anxiety, depression, and interpersonal conflict, not because their lives are worse, but because every external event becomes an existential threat. The Stoic law is this: your identity must be anchored in your character, your values, and your process, the things that exist regardless of outcome, not what you have achieved, not what others say about you, not the results. The standard you hold yourself to in the dark, when no one is watching and there is nothing to gain. The Spartans understood this at a civilizational level. When a Spartan soldier abandoned his shield to flee from battle, he was expelled from Sparta, not executed, expelled. Because a Spartan without his shield was choosing survival over the standard. And a Spartan without his standard was not a Spartan at all. He was just a man. The identity was the practice, not the outcome. This is why Marcus Aurelius did not break under the weight of an empire in collapse. It is why Epictetus wrote philosophy while enslaved. The self they were defending was not contingent on their circumstances. It existed beneath circumstance, immune to it. The practical instruction is this: define 3 principles, not goals, principles, that you will hold regardless of whether you win or lose, are praised or ignored, succeed or fail. Write them somewhere you will see them daily, and then measure yourself only against those 3 things, not against outcomes, not against other men, against the standard you set for yourself in clarity. When your identity is rooted in what cannot be taken, no one can take you. The relationship cannot destroy you. The failure cannot erase you. The betrayal cannot define you. because what you are does not live in any of those places. Let me be honest with you for a moment. This path is lonely. Not the romantic kind of lonely that looks good in photographs. The real kind. The kind where you look around a room full of people and realize that almost none of them are playing the same game you are. That your silence makes them uncomfortable. That your discipline makes them feel judged. That your refusal to collapse makes them distrust you. The wolf does not grieve that the sheep do not understand him, but he still walks alone.
There will be moments, there will be many moments, where you wonder if this coldness is worth it, where the warmth of the crowd feels like it might be enough, where you consider putting down the law and just joining them in the comfortable noise. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote The Prince in 1513 while living in exile from Florence, the city he had served for 14 years. He had been imprisoned by the Medici, tortured, stripped of his office, his title, and his reputation. He wrote the most ruthlessly honest political philosophy in Western history not from a throne, but from a farmhouse in the countryside with no power, no audience, and no guarantee anyone would ever read a word of it. He changed the world from a place of total defeat. Not because he was rescued, not because circumstances improved, but because his understanding of power did not require external permission to exist. This freedom is cold. The castle you build inside yourself has no guests, but it cannot be besieged.
It cannot be burned. And when everything outside you has collapsed, and eventually for every man, something outside him will collapse, the castle remains. That is the only freedom that is truly yours. You made it to the end. That is not a small thing. Most people clicked away the moment this stopped flattering them. You are not most people. You already knew that. That is why you are still here. You do not need a community of millions. You need a philosophy sharp enough to cut away everything that is making you weak. These 4 laws, the death of approval seeking, the mastery of desire, the weaponization of emotional control, the anchoring of identity, are not a program. They are a standard. And the distance between where you are now and the man who has internalized them completely is measured in repetitions, not revelations. Subscribe not because I asked you to. Subscribe because you are done being prey. Because you have decided, perhaps for the first time with full clarity, that you will not give other people the power to define, diminish, or destroy what you are building inside yourself. There is content I cannot say publicly, things the algorithm suppresses, things that do not fit inside what the platform rewards. If you want to go deeper, further than this, you know where to find it. The work does not end here. It never ends. But now you have the foundation. Build in silence. Move in calculation. Let no one see the glacier until they are already underneath it.